Good morning, everybody. And welcome to Bristol Community College, and thank you for joining us for Reversing Global Warming, Carbon Farming for Food, Health, Prosperity, and Planet. Thank you. My name is Karl Thidemann. I'm the Director of Outreach for Biodiversity for Livable Planet, and it's really delightful to see so many of you here today for what I believe is a very, very important message as we move forward in addressing the climate crisis. One initial announcement for speakers. Gabrielle, do you want to stand up for just a moment? Gabrielle Bastine will be assisting by doing timing today, so please keep an eye on her and she'll let you know when you're coming up on the closing few minutes of your talk. We'd like to start today's program with welcoming remarks, the view from above, the view from below, opening a world of possibilities, and we're going to start by hearing from Greg Cetheris, who's the Acting Vice President for Academic Affairs here at our host, Bristol Community College. He is the Vice President.
Thank you, Karl. It's really a wonderful delight for me to be able to welcome you here to Bristol Community College on behalf of President John J. Sprague. Jack would have, he's away and out of town today. He would absolutely be delighted, and I know he was disappointed that he could not be here. In his 15 years here, much has happened in the area of sustainability with Bristol Community College, so having this event here today is incredibly appropriate. President Sprague was one of the original signatories of the AAC&U's President's Climate Change Commitment. So since that time, over the past decade, Bristol Community College has made a number of changes to regarding environmental affairs. A lot of them you saw as you came in today that are going on, construction projects that are going on right here on the campus today. And I'll just give you a little bit of a history about what's going on today. You noticed a large construction project on your left as you came in. That will be the John J. Sprague Health and Science Technologies Building. It will be the first net zero health and science technology building in the Northeast when it is completed. In the initial planning stages of that design, it was going to use the same amount of energy as all of the other 10 buildings on the campus together combined. And they looked, and the architects looked and said, we've got to be able to do better than that. And we now have, you notice to the right as you drove in, the carport that's going up. Acres of carport that currently are in the process of having solar panels put on top of that. That will be the largest solar carport in the Northeast. Between the carport and the field that will be between the new building, the Science Technology Building, and this current building that we were in, there are approximately 30 geothermal wells that go down about 400 to 500 feet, and that will be, between the carport and the geothermal, will be the main source of energy for that building. So we're incredibly excited about those physical changes to our plant. Also, some of the things that you cannot see here in the college is that a lot of the other buildings already have been littered, and I know that there are some pictures in some of the literature that you might see around today that show the tops, aerial view of the tops of some of our buildings. I believe about 4 of the current buildings are completely covered with solar panels as well. In addition to the physical changes, we have curricular changes going on. One of the biggest, I get the honor in a few minutes to introduce Dr. Nancy Lee Wood, who's the founding director of BCC's, I'm going to try to get this right, ISPE, the Institute for Sustainability and Post-Carbon Education. And right now, Nancy is in the process of designing a major in sustainability. We also have here at the college, in regards to curriculum, in the last 2 years, we have developed a solar power certificate and a wind power certificate, and we have a long-standing associate's degree in organic agriculture. So we're very proud not only of the physical changes, but also of our curricular changes. And now I'm going to, so that's a little bit about Bristol Community College. Very excited to welcome you on behalf of President Sprague. And now I get the honor of introducing really a force here at BCC for sustainability, Dr. Nancy Lee Wood.
Thank you, and good morning. I'm so glad to see so many people here this morning to talk about one of the most important topics that we have facing us, and that is how do we deal with climate change? What are the things that we can do to make those changes? I'm Nancy Lee Wood, Professor of Sociology and the Director of the Institute for Sustainability and Post-Carbon Education. We have a lot of wonderful presentations to hear today, and we started a little bit late, and so I'm going to stop right now so that we can get started and be on time. So the next person that is here to be presenting this morning, our very first presenter, is Adam Sachs. He's the Executive Director of Biodiversity for a Livable Climate. And I hope you have a wonderful conference. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask me. The restrooms are downstairs. If you want to put your coats downstairs, there's a hanging place downstairs. If you need anything, please connect with me. Thank you very much for being here.
So a lot of these climate conferences are really depressing, and I would be remiss not to be depressing for 5 minutes. So we're going to do 5 minutes of really depressing, and then we're going to get over it. All right? If I can find my presentation. Let's see, we've got a clicker, and we'll see if that works. You realize that technology will save us, but maybe not today, or next week, or next year. I've been a climate activist and a climate science watcher for about 15 years now, and it's been a wild ride. We've seen many flavors of scientists and skeptics and politicians and business interests and bystanders, from initial optimism about how easy it would be to go to alternative energy and that would solve the problem, to mounting despair about it just isn't working. Many of you have some idea of how bad climate is, and it's faster than anyone ever imagined 15, 10, 5 years ago. It's accelerating. And I'll tell you, it's a lot worse than you have imagined. And today it's fallen to me to seriously scare you. And as I said, then we can move on, because being scared doesn't help. So, is it cold out there? Taking a survey. All in favor? All opposed? Is this what global warming looks like? Yes? Come on, I was going to argue with you. Now I can't. So, just a brief overview of why this is what global warming looks like. The key word in global warming, besides warming, is global. Right. I give easy quizzes. So, the point is that the average temperatures are what's getting warmer, and this climate system is very complex. So your local mileage will vary by a lot. But as climate scientist Paul Trenberth tells us about our current extreme snows, the number one cause of this is that it is winter. In winter, it's cold over the continent, but it's warm over the oceans. And the contrast between the cold continent and the warm Gulf Stream and surrounding waters is increasing. At present, sea surface temperatures are more than 2 degrees Fahrenheit above normal over huge expanses off of the East Coast. And let's see, does this do it?
You have to bring what you're just...
You have to turn the PowerPoint on. No, bottom of your screen.
Oh, right, that's right, okay, that's it. All right. Okay, so if you look along the edge of the coast, you'll see the dark spots are temperature anomalies, and it's up to 5 or 6 degrees centigrade warmer than normal in the sea. That's by planetary standards. I mean, we would feel the difference, but the planet feels the difference far more than we do. Planetary systems are very sensitive to changes in temperature. So we mix the moist air and the icy cold winds from the north and the warm oceans together, and the result is a lot more snow. And climate warming is about roughly half of the picture. The winter is one example of climate-related weather oddities, and global warming doesn't cause winters or many kinds of other kinds of weather, but it amplifies the extremes. It shifts the norms. These changes, which are so dramatic to us, are merely small changes in the biogeophysical history of planet Earth, but for us, they're pretty dramatic and they're very dangerous. These variations manifest in extreme wildfires, hurricanes, floods, heat events, and droughts. And we've all read the news and we've seen that. But droughts are probably the most dire consequence because no water equals no food. Death by global warming may be terrifying enough during a 200-mile-per-hour hurricane, but we are threatened with actual extinction by the disappearance of food and water. In the face of global food failure, with no new continents left to conquer and ravish, our glorious human achievements will crumble to dust, not with a bang, but with a whimper. The painful, horrible whimper of death by thirst and starvation, it's already started. Climate migrations and climate wars across the world, deprivation of food and water always leads to war. A key problem in the discussion of climate is that people, including climate scientists, don't want to face climate reality. The reality is that everything is happening faster than anyone expected and accelerating and speeding out of control. This is how the beginning of the end happens in the history of the world. 99% of all species have come, had their day in the sun or in the shallows, and gone. There is no apparent reason why people should be any different. But facing the end of life as we know it, let alone possible absolute disappearance of Homo sapiens from the face of the earth, is kind of difficult for us to contemplate. We have been systematically dismantling our own life support systems, watching them fall apart, not knowing how to deal with it, so we pretend that it's not happening. Extinction for us is unthinkable, but it's possible. All it will take is a couple of more degrees of temperature rise. And we haven't even had 1 degree of temperature rise yet. And in effect, we're all in denial. There's no safety in what we've got so far. It's all out of control. And I want to make it clear that while we at Biodiversity for a Livable Climate are in full support of emissions reductions, they haven't worked. So we need to do something else, especially because there's a 20 to 30-year time lag between the effects we are seeing today and the actual cause. We are seeing the results of emissions that we spewed out 25 years ago. We haven't caught up yet. So there's another half, the more important half that's been ignored, and that's getting carbon out of the atmosphere and back into the ground where it belongs. Emphasizing, there are 2 prongs for climate action. Sources, which are fossil fuels, and sinks, which are a variety of mechanisms, including oceans, but the most important one for our purposes is soils. Soils hold more carbon than the atmosphere and the above-ground biosphere put together. And there's plenty of room for more. We have billions of desertified acres that we can restore on this planet. So, to sum up the scary part, if we don't pull carbon into the ground at this point, aside from eliminating emissions, we're headed straight for oblivion. This winter has been only an introductory taste of that for us New Englanders. Other parts of the world have faced far more serious consequences already. Some places are relatively untouched so far, but not for long. This is one planet Everything is connected to everything else, and we have not begun to contemplate what nature will do to us for our misbehavior. She always bats last, and she always hits the ball wherever she likes. And yet, we can begin to change all of this. Scary part's over. You can breathe now. To join the family of species that have survived the slings and arrows of planetary fortunes, we can take the road not taken. For that reference, see the back of your program. So now we're duly frightened. Hello. Now we're duly frightened. I'm duly frightened by technology. I hope I've driven the point home. It sounds like all of you are pretty much there. It's time to put the fear aside, because fear doesn't really help. Fear inspires us to create more deserts, so we can more desert sand, so we can stick our heads in it. To the contrary, our job is to turn the sand into dark, rich, sweet soil full of life, full of the carbon that's doing so much damage in the atmosphere, and putting it into soils where it can create life rather than end it. So that's what we're here for, to figure that out. Because fundamentally, this conference is an opportunity to explore a new universe of possibilities. One where we restore the billions of acres that humans have damaged, one where we bring abundance back to a living world, one where we reverse global warming, and he likes that idea. One of our collective problems in an urban-dominated world is that we don't have a good grasp of the power of biology. We're technomaniacs with more faith in a computer chip than in a green leaf, whose processes are far more powerful, complex, and mysterious. In our romance with machines, we barely appreciate, can I get some water, Carl? We barely appreciate that life has literally created this planet. So let's ask, why aren't we talking about the extraordinary impact of living things? Without life, Earth would just be another rock floating in space. That's Mercury, that's Earth. The difference between that planet and our planet is, among other things, to put it very simply, this. Those are chloroplasts in green plants. Now, if basic life forms can undertake and engineer such an extraordinary transformation on a planet, that one again, if those little things can turn that into that, then surely it can take a few parts per million of extra carbon out of the atmosphere and put it back into the ground. All we have to do is give it a chance. Remember, give peace a chance? Well, we want to give life a chance. The answer is that life can do all of this and more. Nature is self-organizing. Over at least 3.8 billion years, living things have created the Earth that we know today, and that brought life to us. They made limestone cliffs, ancient rocks. That's a stromatolite. All of those used to be living things. They held together mountains and shorelines. Thank you. Without trees, all of that falls apart. And they gave us an oxygen atmosphere. Without those little tiny green things, we would be breathing, we wouldn't be breathing. I was going to say we'd be breathing sulfur and other kinds of things that we couldn't breathe, but we wouldn't be breathing at all. Green plants take carbon dioxide out of thin air, add water, just like Betty Crocker, and turn it into life, which is all made out of carbon building blocks, many forms of life in the soils, bacteria, fungi, worms, insects, small mammals, move carbon out of the atmosphere where it's frying the planet and bury it deep in the soils where it stays put for hundreds, even thousands of years. Land that looks like this can turn into land that looks like this in 3 years when we manage it properly. The power of nature to heal is extraordinary and fast, but since we humans have gotten so far off track, we also have to help nature along by jump-starting the regeneration process. And the good news is that we know how to do this from years of good management experience. Management that follows nature's lead, no synthetic chemicals, no fancy, untested, possibly dangerous technology, very low cost, adaptable to many different environments, enormous potential for biodiversity, healthy soils, healthy food, sustainable local economies, and much more, all courtesy of the natural world, and the other species don't even demand minimum wage. So what's good about global warming? Because I said the good, the bad, and the scary. What's good about it is that it's a loud, clear wake-up call, one that finally we cannot ignore because there's no longer anywhere to hide in this global village. A wake-up call about the extremely dangerous and toxic things we're doing. It's commanding us to restore ecosystems, biodiversities, and soils, and one might even be tempted to say that it's a planetary panacea. It's so inexpensive, so beneficial, so simply beautiful that we must do it. In closing, I have to say I've heard of being paralyzed by fear, but I've never heard of being paralyzed by hope. And here today you will hear about unparalleled opportunities for hope. The time for it is now. The globally warmed planet Earth is such an emergent moment for all of us in whatever ways we can, from cities to suburbs to farms and ranches, to expansive tracts of grasslands to jungles to forests to frozen tundra, wherever we are. It's time to get started. Thank you.